Hi there. This is Tom Aaron from FetchMasters Dog Training in Denver, Colorado. Today, I want to spend a couple of minutes chatting with you about a topic that is pretty common in dog trainer circles. That is the topic of whether or not to give free dog training advice, particularly in the sales process, during a phone call or an email inquiry. My attitude on this topic has actually shifted a lot over the past 8 years. And that's why I thought it'd be an interesting topic to kind of talk about. I think it'll be educational for dog trainers, particularly new dog trainers, um, as well as educational for clients so that you can understand where we're coming from and why some of us do things differently regarding giving free advice. So back when I first started dog training, and people would try to finagle free dog training advice from me, that I used to find that somewhat offensive, and I would try to avoid it and resist it. The reason why is really twofold. First, learning to train dogs professionally was expensive and took a lot of hard work. Um, I never wanted to be a fly by night, hang out my shingle without knowing what I'm doing dog trainer. I wanted to be really, really good. And so I studied hard, I worked hard, I learned to train dogs. And when someone just wanted free advice from me, well, that didn't pay my bills. And it didn't seem fair. And so, like I said, I would resist it. And there's another reason I resisted it because for a long time, I've known that when you give something to someone for free, they really tend to not value it as much as something that they had to pay for. Um, so that was another reason why I resisted it. And if you talk to dog trainers today, you're going to get some of those same answers. This is my stock in trade. People don't value what they don't pay for. You're going to hear this kind of stuff, and some trainers will not give free advice. And it's understandable. No judgment here. But I've actually realized over the years that it's to my benefit in a number of ways to give free dog training advice. Now, if you're a prospective client listening to this, um, I don't want you to think that I run a free dog training advice hotline where you can just call in and ask your questions and I'm going to give you free advice and send you on your way. It doesn't really work that way. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about how I determine when and how much free dog training advice to give. Um, so the way I look at it, there are basically three types of dog training scenarios. The first scenario is that you have a dog training objective that you really don't need a trainer for. An example of that would be house training. Um, so there's lots of YouTube videos on house training a dog. There's lots of articles on house training dogs that you can find online. Some of them are better, some of them are worse. Some of them use methods that I wouldn't use. And some of them are good, positive methods that will work fine for you. And you can read about them and learn about them. But sometimes it helps just to have the human touch there to explain things to you and answer your questions. So I could charge you for an hour-long dog training session and then spend an hour driving across Denver through the terrible traffic, which Denver traffic usually is, to get to your house. And then I could spend 20 or 30 minutes showing you our house training protocol, walking you through it, answering your questions, and then we could find something else to kill the next 40 minutes so that you get your money's worth. And then I could spend, an hour driving through Denver traffic to get to the next client. So in other words, I could spend 2.5 or 3 hours to provide this service for you while charging you for 1 hour. Now, that does not make mathematical sense, and it's pretty obvious to see why. That's pretty inefficient. Instead, what I could do is I could email you our house training protocol and spend 5 or 10 minutes going over it with you on the phone. And you're going to know pretty much everything you need to know to house train your dog, and you can get on with it. Um, so it's actually less expensive for me to just give you free advice on certain things that are easy to explain, that aren't going to take up a whole lot of time. And so if I can do that for a client, I will. It helps the client, it helps me, it creates goodwill. And sometimes it results in return business, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the person will call up another trainer, and that trainer will go help them fix their house training advice. I lose out, but oh well. So that's the first type of situation where you don't really need a trainer. Then there's a second type of situation. And it goes something like this. Most of the time, if I talk to a prospective client on the phone, I'm going to be able to figure out what's going on with their dog. I've been doing this for a while and I know the right questions to ask. Chances are I've seen it before. It's not going to surprise me. A lot of people call and they think their dog training problem is something horrendously difficult, and it's just for dog trainers, it's something that's routine. Um, but sometimes I don't know what's going on, and the dog's owner can't answer questions for me to a level that allow me to really say for certainty what's going on. Let's take an example. Canine rivalry in the home with aggression. So two dogs who are living together are getting in fights over something in the home. Well, that type of thing typically is rooted in some sort of resource guarding. Those dogs are fighting over something. The first thing we need to figure out is what they're fighting over. And there's tests that we can run to figure that out. So rather than drive out to that client's house and try to observe these dogs and run a bunch of tests, I can, in a few minutes, talk to the client about how to manage their dog and give them some things to look for and see if they can spot what's causing the fight, see if they can figure out what resources at play. And then once they figure out what resources is at play, that might solve their problem. That gives them, that opens itself up to a management strategy around that resource that can just stop the dog fight. So it might fix the problem, or it might not. If it does not solve their problem, then that tells me that things are probably a bit more complex, and it makes more sense for me to sell this client a dog training package of some sort and spend the time to go out to their house and help them. And then there's a third type of scenario. And that scenario is one where the client needs a dog trainer, because the fact is most clients are not going to have the knowledge level and the tactile skills and the handling skills to achieve certain dog training goals, regardless of whether or not they can find it on YouTube, and deal with all the variations in training scenarios that can come up along the way. They're going to need a skilled set of hands and a skilled set of eyes on the problem. And frankly, those are the kinds of jobs that I enjoy working with the most. And it's worth it financially for me. And from a practicality standpoint, it's more worth it for the client. So those are the three types of scenarios. One where they don't need a dog trainer, one where they can run some experiments, maybe solve their problem, or maybe they're going to need my help. And then there's stuff that just flat out requires a trainer in most situations. So anyway, this is why I don't mind giving out free dog training advice from time to time. So if you're a client, hopefully that helps you understand why some trainers may not be willing to give free advice. Some trainers may, to a degree. I don't think any trainer is just going to give you free advice on everything. Otherwise, they're not going to be a dog trainer for very long. And hopefully it helps dog trainers, particularly new ones who struggle with this. Should I or should I not give free dog training advice? When you're just starting out, you need to get every job that comes down your pike, and you may be less interested. But I think you'll find that as you grow, um, and you don't need every job that comes down the pike, that giving out that free advice sometimes is actually to your advantage. So hopefully this is helpful to everybody. If you have questions or comments, I would love to hear them. Just put them in the YouTube comments below, or you can email us. Check out our website, FetchMasters.com. We're always happy to help.